The wind howled across the icy plains of Zernanine. Snow beat against the metal walls of the old bunker. Inside, Commander Dren sat alone near a weak heater. His food supplies were low, but enough for one man. He hadn't seen another soul in weeks. The war had ended, but the scars were still fresh. He liked the silence, at least. That's what he told himself. Then, knock, knock, knock. Dren froze. 3 soft knocks echoed through the hallway. No one should be here. He slowly grabbed his blaster, moved toward the metal door. Another knock, softer this time, almost. Desperate, he opened the camera screen beside the door. A figure stood in the blizzard, covered in a torn blanket, barely standing in her arms. A small bundle, a child. Dren blinked. An alien woman, skin pale purple, lips cracked, eyes tired. Her hair frozen to her cheeks. She looked up at the camera and spoke, her voice cracking through the mic. Please feed my daughter, she said. The only thing I have left is my body. Tonight, it's yours. Human, Dren stared. What did she just say? Was she offering herself in exchange for food? The child in her arms whimpered. He cursed under his breath, against all instincts. He pressed the door button. The metal door hissed open. Cold air slammed into him. The woman stepped forward, trembling. She didn't look at him directly, just clutched the child close. Dren waved him in. Get inside, he said. Not unkindly, she nodded once, then stumbled in. He shut the door behind them, locking it tight. The warmth of the bunker was weak. But it was better than outside. The woman knelt on the floor. She slowly unwrapped the child, a little girl, thin, with sunken cheeks and wide, frightened eyes. She looked no older than 4. Her tiny hands were blue from the cold. Without a word, Dren walked to his storage box. He pulled out a ration bar and a thermal drink. He handed them to the woman. She didn't touch the food. Instead, she fed the girl first, gently. Her hands shook as she held the cup to her daughter's lips. Dren watched in silence, his fingers still near his blaster, just in case. Who are you? He asked. She didn't answer. She only whispered to her daughter in a strange language. The girl gave a weak smile and leaned into her. She has no name, the woman said finally. Her voice was soft, like snow falling, but I call her Mira. And? You? Dren asked. The woman paused, then said, I am nothing. Dren frowned. He hated riddles. Why are you here? He asked. She looked at him now, her eyes hollow but calm. There was nowhere else to go. She said the others would have taken her or killed her. Dren leaned back. He had heard rumors of what some alien colonies did to unwanted hybrids, especially those with human blood. But he said nothing. He tossed her a blanket. Stay near the heater, he said. I'll ask more questions in the morning. The woman nodded. She sat quietly, wrapping the child and herself in the warm cloth. They didn't take much space, just a corner of the room. Dren lay back in his bunk. He didn't sleep. His mind was full of questions. Why did she come to his bunker? What did she mean, my body is yours? Was she really a mother? Or just using the child? And most importantly, why did she look like she was ready to die? Hours passed. The storm outside grew stronger, but inside, all was quiet. Until the woman spoke again, her voice barely above a whisper. You didn't touch me, she said, not looking up. Why? Dren sat up. He stared at her, unsure what to say. After a moment, he replied, I'm not that kind of man. She smiled, a small, broken smile. No, she said, you are not. The heater hummed softly. The child snored gently in her arms, and Dren realized something strange. He wasn't alone anymore. The bunker was silent. Only the low hum of the heater filled the room. Commander Dren sat at the edge of his bunk, eyes heavy, but he didn't sleep. Across the room, the alien woman sat with her daughter, wrapped in a thick blanket, holding The little girl close. The child had stopped shivering, her breathing now steady. Her name was Mira. That's all Dren knew. The woman had not spoken much after that. She hadn't asked for more food. She hadn't asked for a bed. She hadn't even asked for his name. She sat quietly, her head resting against the metal wall, eyes half closed, always listening, always watching. She looked like someone used to danger, someone who had run for a long time. Dren got up and walked toward the small stove. He opened a pack of dried noodles and poured water into a pot. The smell of warming broth filled the air. He glanced at the corner. The child shifted under the blanket, but the woman stayed still. "You hungry?" Dren asked. The woman looked up slowly. "No," she whispered. "She is safe now." "I asked about you," Dren said, frowning. She didn't answer. Her stomach growled in reply. She looked down, ashamed. He set 2 metal bowls on the floor. One for her, one for him. He kept the third for the child. "Eat," he said, firmly. The woman looked at the bowl as if it were gold. Her fingers trembled as she lifted the spoon. But she didn't eat. Instead, she leaned down and nudged the child. "Mira," she whispered. "Wake up, little one." The girl blinked, eyes wide. She smiled when she saw the warm food. The woman helped her sit and handed her the bowl first. Dren didn't speak. He watched in silence as the little girl slowly ate the soup. Every bite looked like a miracle. Her mother didn't eat until the girl finished. Only then did she sip from her own bowl, slow and careful, like she was afraid it would disappear. "You've been running?" Dren said. Not a question. The woman nodded. "For 10 nights, she whispered. "No food. Just snow, water, and hiding." "From who?" he asked. "Men," she replied, voice cold. "Hunters, slavers." Others. Dren clenched his jaw. He had heard of slavers still operating in the outer zones. Even after the peace treaty, they didn't care about rules, only about rare flesh and the child. He asked, "Why do they want her?" The woman looked at him. Her eyes were strange, sad and sharp at the same time. "I stole her," she said softly. "She was not mine." Not at first. Dren's eyes narrowed. "What do you mean?" "She was made," the woman said, "in a lab, born in a tank, part human, part Celian. She was to be sold. Tested, broken. I was a cleaner. No name, no rights. Her." Voice cracked, but she continued. "They told me to wash her." She whispered, but when I held her, she smiled. No one had ever smiled at me. Dren said nothing. He didn't understand why it made his chest feel heavy. "I took her and ran," the woman said. "She cried the first 3 nights, but never again. She knew we had to be quiet." She looked at the little girl again. Myra had fallen asleep with her hand resting on the empty bowl. "I don't want your body," Dren said quietly. The woman blinked. "Surprised, I know," she whispered, "but I had nothing else to give." Dren stood up and began locking the doors for the night. "Rest here," he said. "I won't turn you in." "Why?" she asked, voice barely audible. "Because I've seen war," Dren answered. "And you? You look like someone who survived one too." The woman lowered her head. A tear slid down her cheek. But she wiped it quickly. Dren walked back to his bunk. He lay down. Eyes on the cracked ceiling. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring. Maybe the slavers would come, maybe not. But tonight, us. In this broken bunker on a dead planet, he had shared food. He had shared warmth. And somehow, that made him feel human again. The morning came slow and quiet. Outside, the storm had not stopped. Snow piled higher against the bunker's outer wall. But inside, something had changed. The air felt warmer, not from the heater, but from the presence of life. Dren rose early, like always. He walked past the corner where the woman and child slept. Myra's tiny fingers curled around her mother's sleeve. The woman didn't move. She was still as stone. Her breathing steady, Dren stared at them for a long moment. He still didn't know their names. He still didn't trust them, but he hadn't told them to leave. And that said something. He prepared a simple breakfast, more ration bars, and warm broth. The woman stirred as the scent drifted through the air. She opened her eyes slowly, alert, like prey sensing danger. "It's safe," Dren said. "Eat before it gets cold." She nodded. Then gently woke the girl. Mira smiled and reached for the bowl without hesitation. Her hands were still thin, but the color in her cheeks had returned a little. Dren sat across from them. "Still not going to tell me your name?" he asked. The woman hesitated, then said, "Lyra. My name was Lyra, before they erased it." "Who erased it?" Dren asked, but Lyra didn't answer. Instead, she placed her hand on Mira's back. "Protective," Dren sighed. "I'm not your enemy," he said. "If you want to stay here longer, I need to know the truth." Lyra stayed quiet, but after a long pause, she spoke. "They marked me," she said, "for testing, not breeding. They thought I couldn't carry life." She rolled up her sleeve, revealing her forearm. Strange scars lined her skin, small, precise, and deep, like cuts made by machines. Each one was numbered. Dren leaned closer. "Medical tags," he said, recognizing the pattern. "Old science labs used those to track test subjects you were experimented on." He asked. Lyra nodded. "For years," she said softly, "they tried to fix me. Inject me with human tissue, alien DNA, chemicals. They failed. Then how?" "How did you have her?" Dren asked, pointing to Myra. Lyra looked down. "I didn't," she whispered. "She's not mine. Not by blood." "But you protect her like she is," Dren said. "She smiled at me," Lyra replied. "No one ever smiled at me." The room fell quiet. Dren didn't know what to say. The child in front of him, part human, part Zelian, was not a mistake. She was something new, something illegal probably, and someone would pay a lot to get her back. "Do you know who's looking for you?" Dren asked. Lyra nodded. "They wear dark armor with silver faceplates. They don't speak. Only take. They follow the scent of her blood." Dren's blood ran cold. He had seen bounty hunters like that during the war. Not mercenaries, not soldiers. Something worse. "She's not safe here," he muttered. "They'll find you if they're tracking." Her blood, Lyra looked terrified. She clutched Mira closer. "Please. I'll leave. Just give her one more meal." "No," Dren said firmly. "You're not leaving." Lyra blinked, confused. "But you're staying because I said so," he said. "And because I might have a way to stop them," he got up and went to the far side of the bunker. He opened a hidden panel in the wall. Behind it were old military supplies, a DNA scrubber, outlawed tech from the old days. It could erase all trace markers from organic skin. He brought it over. "This will sting," he said. "But it might hide her from the hunters." Lyra didn't question him. She held Mira tightly as he activated the device. The small machine buzzed and lit up. It passed over the child's skin, leaving red trails that quickly faded. Mira didn't cry. She only looked at Dren with wide eyes, curious but calm. After it was done, Dren sighed and leaned back. "It's temporary," he said. "But it'll buy us time." Lyra placed Mira down on a blanket, then stood and faced him fully. She moved closer, her expression serious. "You risked yourself?" she said. "Why?" Dren didn't answer right away. He stared at the old blaster on the wall. The war had taken everything from him. Friends, home, purpose. Then he looked at Myra, sleeping peacefully, and at Lyra. "No longer just a broken stranger, I guess." "I'm tired of surviving," he said. "I want to save something, even if it's just once." Lyra lowered her head. "Then I'll stay," she whispered. For as long as you let us. Dren nodded, but deep down, he knew this was only the beginning, because if they erased her scent, then someone, somewhere, was about to get very angry. The air inside the bunker was still, but tension ran through it like an electric wire. Commander Dren stood at the window. Snowflakes clung to the reinforced glass. Beyond the white storm, there was movement, shadows, shapes. Lyra stood silently behind him, holding Mira. The girl had stopped playing. She sensed something too, a change in the air. A danger they couldn't see but could feel. Dren turned from the window. He pulled down a metal crate and opened it. Inside were weapons, old but clean and loaded. He tossed Lyra a shock baton. You know how to use it? Lyra looked at the baton, then at him. Yes, she said quietly. I wasn't always just a cleaner. Dren nodded. He grabbed his rifle and checked the battery charge. Something's coming, he said. Not bandits, she already knew. Her hands gripped the baton tightly. She moved Myra behind a crate and knelt beside her. If I tell you to run, she whispered. Run, and don't look back. The child didn't argue. She nodded once. Brave in a way only she could be. Suddenly, the outer alarm pinged. One ping, then another. Then silence. Dren rushed to the console. A small drone camera showed a shape moving through the storm. No heat signal, no ID code, but it was tall, armored, and fast. Dren cursed. Hunter class, he muttered. He clicked. A switch, activating the outer defenses. 2 turrets rose from the snow and aimed toward the figure. It didn't stop walking. Didn't flinch as the first warning shot blasted near its feet. Instead, it raised a weapon, long silver, humming with energy, with one strike. The turret on the left exploded. The second followed seconds later. Dren's heart dropped. It's not just any hunter. He said, it's enhanced. Lyra looked toward the blast outside. They found her, she said, voice shaking. They always find her. Not this time, Dren replied. He grabbed a small chip and placed it into Myra's coat. Eh? Locate her, just in case. He turned to Lyra. There's a tunnel behind the storage room. He said, take her through it. Leads to the cliffs, if I don't make it. Find the outpost 6 clicks west. Lyra's eyes widened. You'll fight that thing alone. It's not the first time, Dren said. Giving a faint smile, she hesitated, then suddenly stepped forward. Her hand reached up and touched his cheek. Come back, she whispered. Not for her, for me too. He looked into her eyes. There was fear there, but also fire. He gave a small nod. Then turned and headed toward the main entrance, outside. The snow had turned red and black from the turret wreckage. The hunter stood near the entrance, tall as a doorway. Its faceplate gleamed, no eyes. No mouth, just a cold mask, human. It said in a hollow voice, hand over the asset. Dren aimed his rifle. You want the girl? He said, come and get her. The hunter moved fast, faster than anything Dren remembered. They exchanged fire. Energy blasts lighting up the storm. Dren ducked behind a snowbank. The rifle was powerful. But not enough. He needed time. And Lyra needed to escape. Back in the bunker, Lyra guided Mira to the back room. They reached a steel hatch, old and rusty. She kicked it open, revealing the tunnel. Mira looked back. Is he coming with us? Lyra smiled faintly. Yes, she lied. He will catch up. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the walls. Lyra froze. The entrance, it had been breached. She turned to Myra and placed something in her hand. It was a small pendant made of scrap metal shaped like a star. Keep this safe, she said. It means you belong somewhere. Then she picked up the shock baton and turned to go back. Where are you going? Mira asked, to bring him back. Lyra replied. She shut the tunnel hatch and locked it behind her. Dren had taken cover behind a broken wall inside the bunker. His shoulder was bleeding from a near miss. The hunter walked forward, slow and calm. "You cannot win," it said. "Your protection protocol is outdated." Dren laughed weakly. "I've got more than protocols," he said. Then from the side, a sudden flash. Lyra struck. The baton hitting the hunter's side. It sparked but didn't fall. The hunter turned. And that gave Dren the second he needed. He aimed at the ceiling beam above. Fired. The beam crashed down on the hunter, pinning it. Not dead, but trapped. They didn't wait. Dren and Lyra rushed toward the back. "We need to move now," he said. "She's already in the tunnel," Lyra replied, breathless. They opened the hatch and climbed inside. The cold followed them, but they didn't stop behind. Them, Metal groaned. The hunter wasn't done, but neither were they. The escape tunnel was narrow and dark. Old steel walls lined with frost. Water dripped from cracked pipes above. Their footsteps echoed behind them, fast and uneven. Dren led the way, blaster in hand. Lyra followed, carrying Mira. The girl clung to her tightly, but didn't make a sound. They had run for what felt like hours. The path curved downward, deeper into the mountain. There was no light except for the small torch Dren carried. It cast long shadows on the walls, and each shadow felt like it could move. Dren finally stopped at an old metal door. He punched in an ancient code. The door creaked and hissed open. Inside was a hidden chamber, cold but safe. This used to be a wartime hideout. He had discovered it years ago, but never thought he'd need it. Lyra laid Mira down on a thick blanket Dren had stored there. The girl was exhausted, but her small hand reached up to touch Lyra's face. "You came back," she whispered. "I promised I would," Lyra said gently. Kissing her forehead, Dren sat on an old crate, rubbing his injured shoulder. The bandage was soaked, but he didn't complain. He just watched Lyra. She moved differently. Now, not like a slave, not like a test subject, but like a mother who had something worth fighting for. "Why do you keep risking yourself?" Lyra asked him suddenly. Dren looked up, surprised by the question. "You could have locked us out that first night," she said, "but you didn't." Dren didn't answer right away. He stood and walked to the edge of the room. There was a rusted locker there. He opened it slowly. Inside was an old photo, a woman with dark hair and a boy with wide eyes. "My sister," he said. "She died protecting me when we were children. During the first wave of the war, she told me to run." Lyra lowered her eyes. "I never stopped running either," she whispered. "But no one ever came back for me." Dren placed the photo back and closed the locker. "You ran with her," he said. Nodding toward Mira, "That means something." Lyra moved to sit beside him. There was a strange silence between them, not heavy, just real, like two people who didn't need to speak to understand. "She's special," Lyra said softly. "Not just because of her blood." Dren raised an eyebrow. "She can feel things," Lyra said. "She knew when you were bleeding, even before she saw you. She's never been taught, she just knows." Dren looked over at the sleeping girl. Small, fragile, yet somehow unshaken. "She's not a weapon," he said. "No, Lyra." "Agreed, she's a bridge." That word echoed in Dren's mind. Bridge. A link between two worlds, two species, maybe even between war and peace. Suddenly, Mira sat up, gasping, her eyes wide and glowing slightly in the dark. Lyra rushed to her side. "Mira, what is it?" "They're close," she whispered. "They're coming through the rock." Dren stood immediately. She felt them. "I told you," Lyra said. "She can sense them." Dren checked the tunnel map carved into the wall. "They're trying to dig around the main entrance," he said. "We don't have much time." He grabbed his pack, opened a sealed box. Inside was an old transmitter, military grade. "This might still reach Earth," he said. "If we can power it." Lyra touched the device. "Will they help?" she asked. Dren looked at her and said, "Only if they believe she's worth more alive than dead." Myra stood slowly, barefoot on the cold floor. She looked at both of them, her voice soft but clear. "They will come for me," she said. "But I want to stay with you." Lyra hugged her tightly. "You're not going anywhere," she whispered. Not without a fight. Dren connected the wires. Sparks flew. The device hummed to life. He typed fast, sending a single code. Code. Red, hybrid alive. Immediate extraction needed. They waited, hearts pounding. Seconds turned to minutes. Then a signal beep. Someone had received the message. A voice crackled through the speaker. "Hold your position. Earthship inbound, ETA 12 hours. Dren exhaled. Lyra smiled for the first time without fear. But Mira turned her head slowly toward the wall. "They're already here," she whispered. Dren grabbed his weapon again. "Then we just have to survive one more night," he said. He looked at Lyra. She met his eyes and nodded. They stood side by side, soldier and survivor, no longer strangers now. They were protectors of something far greater. The walls of the mountain hideout shook softly. Dust drifted down from the ceiling. Outside, something massive was moving, drilling. Searching, Dren gripped his rifle tighter. Lyra stood near Mira, her body tense like a coiled spring. There was no panic, only silence. The child stood still. Eyes open, glowing softly again. Her small hands spread slightly in front of her. It looked like she was listening to something no one else could hear. "Mira?" Lyra whispered. The girl didn't respond. Dren moved closer. "Mira, can you hear me?" Then, without warning, Mira spoke. "They're afraid," she said. "They know something else is here. Something old. What is she talking about?" Dren asked, glancing at Lyra. "I don't know," Lyra replied, voice shaking. "But sometimes she sees things that haven't happened yet." Mira turned slowly and looked at Dren. "There's a room behind the wall," she said. "It's full of machines." And light. Dren blinked. He had lived in this outpost bunker for years. There was no room behind the wall, at least, not that he had ever found. He hesitated, then walked to where she pointed. He knocked on the metal panel. Hollow. Dren raised his boot and kicked. The old metal creaked, then snapped open. A hidden door fell forward, revealing a narrow passage. Dusty, untouched for decades. Lyra's mouth fell open slightly. "She was right," she whispered. They entered the secret chamber. Inside, it was cold and dim. Rows of strange devices lined the walls, forgotten tech. Energy cores, scanners, glowing tubes with symbols from both Earth and alien languages. In the center of the room was a platform, shaped like a star. Myra walked straight to it and stepped on without fear. Suddenly, the room lit up. The machines hummed. A soft blue light wrapped around Myra. Symbols floated in the air. Data, codes, signals. "What is this?" Dren asked, his voice low. Lyra stared in disbelief. "This isn't just a bunker," she said. "It's a forgotten testing station. Hybrid detection," Dren said slowly, reading a nearby panel. This place was designed to study children. Like her, Myra's voice echoed through the room, but her lips didn't move. "You've built this place to prepare," she said, "for something that hasn't come yet." The light pulsed gently around her body. Dren stepped back, shocked. Lyra rushed forward, but stopped at the edge of the platform. "Mira, are you okay?" The girl looked at her and smiled. The light. "It knows me," she whispered. "It says I can stop what's coming." "What's coming?" Dren asked quickly, but Mira only said, "They are not just hunters. They are cleaners." Lyra gasped. "I've heard the term," she said. "Cleaners. Wipe out genetic evidence, destroy hybrids, not just for profit, for control." Dren cursed under his breath. They want to erase her, like she never existed. The machines around Myra suddenly dimmed. She stepped down slowly. "I don't know how I did that," she whispered. "I just knew where to go." Lyra hugged her tightly. "You're not a mistake," she said. "You're a gift." Dren checked the transmitter again. Still no signal, just static. They had less than 12 hours before the rescue team arrived. And the cleaners were already near. Then the ground shook again, harder this time. A deep rumble echoed through the bunker. "They're breaking in from the eastern side." Dren said they found the weakness in the rock. He turned to Lyra. "We can't hold them off down here, but if we can get to the top ridge, I can use the beacon flare." "Isn't that dangerous?" Lyra asked. Dren nodded. "They'll see it too," he said, "but so will the rescue ship." Lyra looked at Mira. "I'll carry her," she said. "You guide us together." They climbed the emergency shaft. It was steep, dark, and freezing. Each step felt harder than the last, but they didn't stop. At the top, Dren pushed open a hatch. Snow burst in like a wave. They stepped out onto a narrow ridge, wind roaring in their ears. Dren pulled the flare device from his pack. He aimed it toward the sky. "Ready?" He shouted over the storm. Lyra clutched Mira close. "Do it," she said. He fired the beacon. A bright red light shot into the clouds. It would shine for hours, or until someone arrived. But below them, in the valley, dark shapes were moving. Black armor, silver masks, the cleaners. They had seen the flare, and now they were coming. Mira looked down at them, then turned to Dren and said, "If I tell the mountain to stop them, it might break me." Dren crouched in front of her. "You don't have to do anything alone." He said, "We're here." Lyra took Mira's hand. "We're with you," she said. "Always." The wind howled louder. The enemy drew closer. But the three of them stood at the top, not as weapons, not as fugitives, but as family. Snow whipped across the mountain ridge. The red flare burned in the sky above. It was their last signal, their last hope. But it had also become a beacon for the enemy, down in the frozen valley. Black figures were moving. Dozens of them, armored. In silver masks, no voices, no emotions, just shadows with weapons. The cleaners had arrived. And they were coming for the child. Commander Dren stood beside a tall rock, rifle ready, his injured shoulder throbbed. But he didn't care. Next to him, Lyra held Mira in her arms. The girl was shaking, not from the cold, but from something deeper, the power inside her. "They're almost here," Lyra whispered, eyes wide. Myra clutched her tightly. "I don't want to go back," she cried softly. "I don't want them to take me." "No one's taking you," Dren said. "Not while we're still breathing." Above them, the flare flickered. Then, a sound in the clouds. Low, deep, growing louder. Lyra looked up. Is that a ship broke through the storm? Sleek, dark gray, with Earth's military symbol on its wings. It hovered low, scanning the ridge. A voice crackled through Dren's com. "This is rescue. Ship Echo 9, we received your signal. Extraction in 2 minutes, prepare for contact." Lyra let out a sob of relief, but Dren didn't lower his rifle. 2 minutes might be too long, he muttered. He pointed down the slope, the cleaners. "We're halfway up already." The ship began its descent, landing gear digging into the snow. A hatch opened, and 2 human soldiers stepped out. One of them shouted, "Get the hybrid on board, now." Dren turned to Lyra. "Go," he said. "Take her. I'll hold them." "Off?" Lyra hesitated. "No, not without you." "You have to," Dren said firmly. "They're not after me. They want her." Suddenly, Mira stepped forward. Her eyes glowing again, brighter than ever. She stared at the enemy down the mountain, and then the earth rumbled, snow shifted, rocks cracked. A deep vibration came from the mountain itself. The cleaners stopped, confused. Then the ground beneath them broke apart. An avalanche roared to life, not from nature, but from her. Myra raised her. Armed slowly, the snow obeyed. A wall of white rushed down and swallowed the enemy forces. One by one, the cleaners disappeared under the crushing ice. No screams, no struggle, just silence. The mountain shook again, and Mira collapsed. Lyra caught her. Her breathing was weak. "She's burning up," Lyra shouted. Dren dropped too. His knees beside them. "She used too much power," he said. "Too fast, the soldiers reached them. We have to get her inside now." One shouted. Lyra carried Mira toward the ship. But as they stepped aboard, Mira stirred. Her small hand reached out and grabbed Dren's fingers. "Don't leave me," she whispered, barely awake. Dren looked at Lyra. He took a deep breath and stepped onto the ship. The door sealed shut behind them. Engines roared to life. The ship rose through the storm, leaving behind the ruined mountain. Inside, medics worked quickly on Mira. They attached monitors and injected a stabilizing serum. Her vitals slowly steadied. Lyra sat beside her, brushing hair from her face. "She live?" she asked, voice breaking. The medic nodded. "She's strong, stronger than any hybrid we've ever seen." Dren leaned against the wall, silent. His eyes didn't leave the child's face. 2 weeks later, Earth Human Settlement Zone. For the sun shone softly over the hillside colony. Birds flew overhead, and children played near the greenhouses. Dren stood near a window, watching them. Behind him, Lyra placed a hand on his back. "She's awake," she said, smiling. "She's asking for you." He turned and followed her into the recovery room. Mira was sitting up now, a small bandage on her forehead. When she saw Dren, her face lit up. "You came," she said. "I told you I would," Dren replied. Myra reached out. "I had a dream," she said. "In the dream, I was alone, but then you came. You and Mama Lyra's." Eyes filled with tears. "She's never called me that before," she whispered. Dren sat beside the bed. "You're not alone now," he said, "and you never will be." Mira smiled, a quiet, peaceful smile, not scared, not broken. Just a child finally safe. Lyra took both their hands in hers. She looked at Dren. "You didn't just save her," she said. "You saved both of us." He nodded slowly. "And maybe," he said, "she saved me too." Asterisk. She was just a forgotten child, born in a lab running through snow. But to them, she became hope, and to him, she became family.